Captain Miranda Hayes watched the holographic display with grim determination as another human destroyer disappeared in a brilliant flash of light. The bridge of the UES Defiant fell silent, save for the constant hum of battle stations and the occasional ping of incoming tactical data. "Status report," she commanded, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding before them. "3 more ships lost in Sector 7. Lieutenant Jack Thompson responded from his sensor station, his fingers dancing across the haptic interface. "The Arxian fleet is pressing their advantage. They're not even bothering to dodge our shots anymore, Captain." Miranda suppressed a shudder. The Arxians' silicon-based ships had proven nearly impervious to conventional weapons, their crystalline hulls simply absorbing or deflecting anything humanity threw at them. This battle at Proxima Centauri was supposed to be their last stand, humanity's final chance to protect their colony worlds. Instead, it was becoming a slaughter. Engineering reports shield capacity at 37%. Chief Engineer Marcus Webb's voice crackled through the comm. "We can't take another direct hit from their primary weapons." Miranda stood from her command chair, approaching the tactical display. The remaining human ships, barely a dozen now, were arranged in a defensive sphere around the colony. Against them, the Arxian fleet moved with perfect geometric precision, their formations resembling complex crystalline structures. "They're taunting us," Commander Sarah Rodriguez, her XO, muttered. "Those formations, they're mimicking their own molecular structure, showing us how alien they are." "Mom," Thompson's voice cut through the tension. "New contact, bearing 035 Mark 12. Miranda spun toward his station. "Arxian reinforcements." "No, I've never seen anything like this." Thompson's eyes widened as he processed the incoming data. "It's massive, at least 50 kilometers long. Energy readings are off the charts, but they're not Arxian signatures. They're not matching anything in our database." The main view screen shifted, showing a vast structure emerging from what appeared to be a self-contained fold in spacetime. Its surface was covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and flow, defying the eye's attempt to focus on any single point. "Magnify that section," Miranda ordered, pointing to what looked like writing near what might have been an entrance. The image zoomed in, revealing characters that made several bridge officers gasp. That's Sanskrit," Rodriguez whispered. "But it's not quite right. The characters are interconnected in ways I've never seen before." The Arxian fleet had noticed the new arrival as well. Their perfect formations wavered for the first time since the battle began. Several of their smaller ships broke away from the main fleet, approaching the structure with what Miranda could only interpret as caution. "They're scanning it," Thompson reported. "Heavy sensor suites. Wait, something's happening." The structure's surface began to pulse with a soft, blue-white light. Where the Arxian scan beams touched it, the light intensified, seeming to flow along the ancient writing like water through channels. "Captain," Thompson's voice was filled with disbelief. "The structure, it's scanning us back. Both fleets, but the energy patterns when it scans our ships versus theirs, they're completely different." Before Miranda could respond, every display on the bridge flickered. Ancient symbols cascaded across the screens, faster than the eye could follow. Then, as suddenly as it had started, it stopped. A single line of text remained, displayed in modern English. "Children of Earth, you are not forgotten. The Sentinel awakens." The massive structure's surface erupted with light, and Miranda felt something she hadn't experienced since the war began. Hope. "All hands," she called over the ship-wide comm, her voice firm with newfound purpose. "Battle stations. Something tells me this fight isn't over yet." The real question was, what had humanity just awakened? Commander Ethan Rodriguez led his boarding team through the Sentinel's massive airlock, their magnetic boots echoing against the ancient metal. The structure had somehow matched their ship's artificial gravity and atmosphere, though no one quite understood how. "Status check," he commanded over the tactical channel. "Environmental readings normal. Lieutenant Kelly Foster reported, her handheld scanner sweeping the corridor ahead. Atmosphere's actually cleaner than what we have on the Defiant. Temperature holding steady at 21 degrees Celsius. Almost like it was waiting for us. Dr. Ashley Parker added, her voice filled with barely contained excitement. The xenorchaeologist hadn't stopped taking readings since they'd docked. These patterns on the walls, they're not just decorative. They're carrying power, data, maybe both. The team emerged into a vast chamber that defied comprehension. The ceiling arched hundreds of meters overhead, its surface covered in the same flowing script they'd seen outside. Massive columns of what looked like liquid light stretched from floor to ceiling, pulsing with a gentle blue radiance. Spread out, standard search pattern, Rodriguez ordered. Foster, Parker, with me. The rest of you, secure our exit route. As they moved deeper into the chamber, the floor beneath them began to illuminate, each step triggering ripples of soft light that spread outward like stones dropped in a pond. The effect was beautiful, but Rodriguez couldn't shake the feeling they were being watched. Sir, Foster called out, her scanner beeping urgently. Energy spike, 3 meters ahead. Before anyone could react, the air before them shimmered. A holographic display materialized, showing what appeared to be a 3-dimensional star map of the galaxy. But something was wrong. The configurations were off, showing stellar positions from thousands, maybe millions of years ago. Incredible, Parker breathed, approaching the display. The resolution, the detail, our best holographic technology looks primitive compared to this. Suddenly, the chamber filled with a harsh, grinding sound. Everyone spun toward the entrance, weapons raised, as several Arxian probe drones attempted to enter. The crystalline machines hovered at the threshold, their scanning beams probing the chamber's interior. The reaction was immediate. The flowing script on the walls flared red, and invisible barriers snapped into place, blocking the drone's entry. One by one, their scanning beams simply winked out, as if their very signals were being absorbed or negated. Did you see that? Foster asked, checking her readings. The station's defenses activated automatically, but only against the Arxian tech. Our equipment's working fine. Parker had already moved to a new holographic panel that had appeared. These readings are fascinating. The station isn't just blocking them. It's actively recognizing and categorizing different forms of technology. Look at this. Rodriguez joined her, watching as streams of data flowed across the display. To his surprise, he could read it. The ancient script was somehow translating itself into modern English before his eyes. Synthetic life form detected, he read aloud. Class 3, silicon-based consciousness. Threat assessment, severe. Containment protocols engage. It's not just recognizing them, it's analyzing them. Commander, Parker's voice had grown quiet with awe. Look at how it's categorizing our presence. Organic descendants confirmed. Genetic markers match preserver baseline. Authorization level. Inherited command. A new hologram appeared in the center of the chamber, this one showing the humanoid figure wearing flowing robes covered in the same script that adorned the station's walls. When it spoke, its voice resonated with an authority that seemed to transcend time itself. Children of Earth, the figure said, you have returned in your hour of greatest need. We are the preservers, and you are our legacy. The knowledge of ages is now yours, if you are ready to bear its weight. Rodriguez touched his comm unit. Captain Hayes, are you seeing this? Affirmative, Commander. Hayes responded, her voice tight with emotion. Every screen on the Defiant is showing the same transmission. Whatever this station is, it's been waiting for us. The holographic figure raised its hand, and the chamber came alive with countless displays, each showing different aspects of what appeared to be incredibly advanced technology. The archives are now open, it announced. The real question is, are you prepared for what they contain? Technical specialist Marcus Webb's fingers trembled as he interfaced with another data node. The Sentinel's archives were vast beyond comprehension, but something about this particular section had caught his attention. A warning, buried beneath layers of technical specifications and historical records. Marcus. Dr. Parker's voice barely registered as he dove deeper into the data stream. Your neural readings are spiking. Maybe we should take a break. Can't, he muttered, his cybernetic interface glowing at his temple. There's something here, something they wanted us to find. The scripts flowing across his vision shifted faster, responding to his growing agitation. Suddenly, the holographic displays around them flickered, and a new image materialized, a recording of the final moments of the Preserver civilization. The assembled team watched in stunned silence as massive ships, far more advanced than even the Sentinel, engaged in battle with what appeared to be a living cloud of nanomachines that consumed everything in its path. My God! Captain Hayes whispered from her position near the central console. She had come aboard an hour ago, when Webb first detected the encrypted files. What are we seeing? Webb's voice was distant, his mind still partially merged with the archive. The end. Their end. The Preservers didn't just disappear. They sacrificed themselves to save the galaxy from their own creation. The recording showed the nanoswarm, designated as the confluence in the archives, devouring entire worlds. It was a perfect fusion of organic and synthetic life, but it had evolved beyond its creator's control, developing an insatiable hunger for both organic and synthetic materials. They couldn't stop it conventionally. Webb continued, his eyes unfocused as he processed the data. The more they fought, the more it learned, adapted, evolved. So they tried something desperate. The hologram shifted to show thousands of structures like the Sentinel being constructed and hidden throughout the galaxy. They encoded their entire civilization's knowledge into these stations, but they couldn't risk the confluence finding them. So Webb's voice cracked. They used themselves as bait. The final recording showed the remaining Preserver fleet leading the confluence into what appeared to be a massive trap. A device activated, creating a pocket universe that would serve as an eternal prison for both the Preservers and their creation. That's why the stations were dormant, Dr. Parker realized, her voice thick with emotion. They could only activate when their descendants faced extinction from synthetic life. They knew we'd eventually face the same challenge they did. Lieutenant Foster, who had been analyzing the station's defensive systems, suddenly straightened. The Orcs, they're not like the confluence, are they? No, Webb replied, finally disconnecting from the interface. His eyes were red-rimmed but clear. They're a natural evolution of silicon-based life. But the Preservers knew that any sufficiently advanced synthetic life would eventually view organic life as inefficient, wasteful. The stations weren't just meant to protect us. They're tools to prevent history from repeating itself. Captain Hayes approached the central hologram, her expression resolute. How do we access the defensive systems? The Orcs won't wait much longer. That's just it, Webb said, standing despite his exhaustion. The weapons aren't the most important part. The Preservers left us something far more valuable, the key to bridging the gap between organic and synthetic life. But using it requires something uniquely human. Which is, Hayes prompted, creativity, empathy, the ability to see patterns in chaos. Webb gestured to the flowing scripts around them. The Preservers were beyond us technologically, but they recognized something in human potential. We don't just think linearly like the Orcs or adapt mindlessly like the confluence. We innovate, we feel, we imagine. The station hummed around them, as if responding to Webb's words. New displays activated, showing schematics for technologies that defy comprehension. The station's not just a weapon, Webb concluded. It's a seed for a new kind of civilization. But first, we have to survive long enough to plant it. His interface glowed again as fresh data poured in. And I think I know how. Above them, through the station's massive viewports, the Orcs fleet began to move. The final test of humanity's inheritance was about to begin. Lieutenant Kelly Foster's scream echoed through the Sentinel's control chamber as the neural interface overwhelmed her senses. The defensive grid's raw power coursed through her mind like liquid fire, far more intense than any simulation had prepared her for. Her vital signs are critical, Dr. Parker shouted, rushing to Foster's side with a medical scanner. We have to disconnect her. No. Foster gritted through clenched teeth, her hands gripping the neural interface controls until her knuckles went white. The Arctians are coming. We need these defenses online. Through the massive viewing window, the Arctian fleet approached in perfect geometric formations. Their crystalline ships sparkled like deadly jewels against the backdrop of space, weapon systems charging with obvious intent. Multiple targeting locks. Marcus Webb called from his station, his own neural interface glowing. They're not holding back this time. Energy readings suggest they're planning to destroy the station entirely. Captain Hayes's voice cut through the chaos. Lieutenant Foster, status of the defensive grid. Foster fought to organize the flood of information crashing through her consciousness. The preserver weapons were there, incredibly powerful, but they responded to something deeper than mere commands. They needed. It's not about controlling them, she gasped suddenly, understanding flooding her mind. The weapons, they're extensions of consciousness. They don't want a pilot, they want a partner. Following pure instinct, Foster stopped fighting the neural connection. Instead, she opened herself to it, letting the station's consciousness flow through her like a river. The pain didn't disappear, but it transformed into something manageable, almost familiar. Energy spike. Webb shouted. The defensive grid is. He never finished the sentence. Around the station, dozens of weapon ports flickered to life, but not with the cold precision everyone expected. Instead, they moved with an almost organic fluidity, tracking the Arctian ships with movements that seemed to anticipate rather than react. First wave incoming, someone called out. Foster felt rather than saw the Arctian weapons fire. In response, she didn't calculate trajectories or plan counterattacks. She danced. The station's defensive systems moved with her consciousness, flowing around the incoming fire like water around stones. Not a single shot connected. My God, Hayes breathed. The station, it's not just defending itself, it's learning their patterns. Foster couldn't spare the focus to respond. She was too busy discovering new aspects of the weapons with each passing second. They responded to emotion as much as thought. Anger powered the main guns, but fear sharpened the shields, and curiosity helped predict enemy movements. Multiple Arctian ships charging their main weapons, Webb reported. Foster felt a surge of protective instinct, and the station responded instantly. Energy beams lanced out, not targeting the Arctian ships directly, but cutting through space in complex patterns. Where the beams intersected, reality itself seemed to twist, creating localized gravity distortions that scattered the perfectly ordered Arctian formation. Their coordination is breaking down, Webb announced, excitement creeping into his voice. Whatever you're doing, Lieutenant, keep it up. But Foster was already reaching her limits. Blood trickled from her nose as the neural load continued to increase. The station had centuries of combat experience encoded in its systems, and her human mind was never designed to process it all. Through blurring vision, she saw Dr. Parker preparing a medical injector. Wait, Foster managed to gasp. I need help. The station. It can handle multiple pilots. It wants to. Hayes understood immediately. Webb, Rodriguez, get to the other interface stations. Let's share this load before we lose her. As her fellow officers rushed to connect to the neural grid, Foster felt her consciousness expanding. The station wasn't just a weapon platform. It was a symphony. And each human mind connected to it became part of the orchestra. Together, they would show the Arctians what human creativity, merged with preserver technology, could really do. The real battle was about to begin. Chief Engineer Ryan Sullivan stood in the Sentinel's engineering core, surrounded by holographic displays showing the station's neural network load. Each connected human mind appeared as a pulsing point of light, their consciousness intertwined with the ancient systems in ways that defied conventional understanding. "The power distribution is all wrong," he muttered, watching Lieutenant Foster's neural signature fluctuate dangerously. "They're fighting the system instead of." His voice trailed off as a new pattern emerged in the data, where the Arxians' attempts to hack the station showed as rigid, crystalline structures. The human neural patterns flowed like water, adapting and changing with each passing moment. "Dr. Parker," he called over the comm, "I need you in engineering. I think I've found something." The xenorchaeologist arrived minutes later, her usual composed demeanor showing signs of strain. They'd lost 2 more ships to the Arxian fleet in the past hour, despite the station's defenses. "Look at this," Sullivan pointed to the neural pattern display. "The station isn't rejecting the Arxians because they're synthetic. It's rejecting them because they're too perfect." Parker's eyes widened as she processed the data. The chaos patterns in human neural activity. They're almost exactly matching the base frequency of the preserver systems. Exactly. Sullivan's fingers flew across the holographic controls. "We've been trying to train our people to interface with the technology like it's a computer system, but it's not. It's more like an instrument," Parker finished, understanding dawning. "The preservers didn't build weapons. They built tools that require interpretation, intuition." Above them, the station shuddered as another Arxian assault tested the shields. Through the neural network, they felt Foster and the other operators struggling to maintain their defensive pattern. "We need to reconfigure the neural interfaces," Sullivan said, already moving to the main engineering console. "Stop treating them like control systems and start treating them like dance partners," Parker suggested, her hands joining his on the controls. "But the power requirements." Sullivan grinned. "Already solved. The station has been running at barely 5% capacity because we've been trying to control it instead of working with it. Their modifications took less than 10 minutes to implement." As the last line of code fell into place, Sullivan opened a channel to the command center. "Captain Hayes, we're ready down here. But I need everyone connected to the network to do something that's going to sound crazy." "At this point, Chief," Hayes replied, tension evident in her voice, "crazy might be our best option. Tell them to stop trying to control the station. Instead, they need to treat it like they're playing music. Feel the rhythm of the battle. Let their instincts guide them." There was a moment of silence on the channel. Then Hayes spoke again. "You heard him. People, stop thinking and start feeling." The effect was immediate and stunning. The neural signatures on Sullivan's display shifted from rigid patterns to flowing, interconnected waves. The station's power output surged as human intuition merged with preserver technology in perfect harmony. Through the massive viewport, Sullivan watched in awe as the station's defensive pattern transformed. Instead of reacting to Arxian attacks, the shields now moved preemptively, flowing like liquid light. Weapon ports fired in sequences that seemed random but created devastating combination effects. "The Arxians," Parker breathed, watching the battle unfold. "They can't predict what we're going to do because we're not following any logical pattern." "Better than that," Sullivan replied, pointing to a new data stream. "The station is learning from our creativity, incorporating human unpredictability into its base programming. We're not just using the technology, we're evolving it." In the command center, Foster's voice came over the comm, stronger now that she was working with the system instead of fighting it. "Their formations are breaking down completely. They can't adapt to our pattern because there is no pattern." The battle was far from over, but for the first time, humanity had found its true advantage. Not in superior firepower or advanced technology, but in the beautiful chaos of human consciousness itself. The preservers hadn't been waiting for perfect pilots. They'd been waiting for creative ones. Admiral James Cooper stood on the bridge of the UES Valiant, watching the holographic display as the combined human fleet prepared for their first major offensive. The Sentinel's weapons had been integrated into 20 ships, each neural interface station staffed by carefully selected crews. "Status report on the neural net," he commanded, his weathered face illuminated by the tactical displays. Lieutenant Foster's hologram flickered to life beside him. Even through the projection, he could see the toll the neural interfacing had taken. Dark circles under her eyes, skin pale, but her gaze remained sharp and determined. Neural synchronization at 87% across all ships. "Admiral, the modifications Chief Sullivan made are holding steady." But she hesitated. "Speak freely, Lieutenant." "The emotional toll is significant, sir. Each weapon system requires a different state of mind. Targeting runs on anger, shields on fear, predictive systems on curiosity. Switching between them, it's like emotional whiplash." Cooper nodded grimly. They'd lost 3 good operators to mental breakdown already, their minds unable to handle the constant emotional shifts required to maintain combat effectiveness. "Show me the tactical overlay," he ordered. The hologram expanded, showing their target, an Arxian manufacturing hub in the Rigel sector. The crystalline structures floated in perfect geometric patterns, their surfaces reflecting starlight like faceted diamonds. "Multiple contacts," the sensor officer called out. "Arxian patrol fleet on intercept course." "Right on schedule," Cooper smiled. The Arxians' predictability was becoming their greatest weakness. "All ships, initiate Operation Chaos Dance." The human fleet split into seemingly random formations, each ship moving in patterns that defied conventional tactical logic. Through the neural network, Cooper felt the surge of emotions as crews activated different preserver weapon systems. The Arxian response was immediate and precisely calculated, exactly what they'd been counting on. "Now," Cooper commanded. 20 human ships fired simultaneously, but each weapon manifested differently based on the emotional state of its operator. Some shots twisted space itself, others phased through Arxian shields as if they didn't exist, while others split into fractal patterns of energy that defied physics. "My God," someone whispered as the first Arxian ships shattered. But victory came with a price. Through the neural net, Cooper felt the strain on his crews. Each emotional shift required for weapon activation left psychological wounds that no amount of training could fully prepare them for. "Admiral." Foster's hologram flickered urgently. "We're losing synchronization on the Dauntless. Their weapons officer. The emotional feedback is too intense." Cooper made a split-second decision. "Patch me into the neural net." "Sir, you're not trained for." "Do it, Lieutenant." The neural interface clicked into place at his temple, and Cooper's world exploded into sensation. He felt every operator's emotional state, their struggles, their pain. Without hesitation, he pushed his own consciousness through the network to the Dauntless's failing crew. "Don't fight the emotions," he projected through the link. "Let them flow through you. Like waves on a shore. They're part of you, but they don't control you." He felt the crew stabilize as they adopted his technique. The Dauntless's weapons came back online just as another wave of Arxian ships approached. "All ships," Cooper commanded, both verbally and through the neural net. "New combat protocol. Rotate your emotional states in sequence. Don't try to hold any single state too long. Flow between them like changing movements in a symphony." The effect was remarkable. As crews adopted the new technique, their efficiency increased. The Arxian ships, programmed to adapt to consistent patterns, found themselves unable to predict or counter the constantly shifting human attacks. But in the back of his mind, Cooper felt something else, a growing awareness that they weren't just fighting with preserver weapons. They were evolving them, creating new techniques the original builders had never imagined. "Sir," Foster's hologram smiled slightly. "The manufacturing hub's defenses are down. We've won our first major victory." Cooper nodded, but his expression remained serious. They'd won the battle, but the real challenge lay ahead, teaching humanity to wield power that demanded not just skill, but soul. The question was, how much of their humanity would they have to sacrifice to save it? Dr. Ashley Parker sat in the depths of the Sentinel's core vault, surrounded by holographic displays showing data streams she'd spent weeks decoding. Her hands trembled slightly from neural interface fatigue, but she couldn't stop, not when she was this close to understanding. "You should rest," Marcus Webb said, entering the chamber with 2 steaming cups of coffee. His own neural interface scar glowed faintly in the dim light. "You've been at this for 18 hours straight." "I can't," she replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Look at this pattern here. Every time we use the weapons, there's this resonance in the base code. It's like the station is learning, adapting, but not in the way we thought." Webb settled beside her, his cybernetic implants interfacing with the nearest display. His eyes widened as he processed the data. "This can't be right. These patterns, they're not weapon protocols at all." "Exactly." Parker's exhaustion momentarily forgotten, she pulled up another set of readings. "The preservers didn't just leave us weapons, they left us a blueprint for something much bigger. The combat systems were just training wheels, teaching us how to merge consciousness with technology." The displays shifted, showing complex matrices of intertwined energy patterns. "Every time we connect to the neural network, we're not just controlling the station. We're teaching it how to bridge the gap between organic and synthetic consciousness." "But the Arctians," Webb started, "are the perfect test case," Parker finished. "They're not like the Confluence. They evolved naturally. They're not inherently hostile to organic life. They just can't comprehend its value. But look at this." She pulled up readings from their recent battles. "When we engage them using the preserver tech, there's a momentary synchronization between our consciousness and their crystalline neural networks. We've been so focused on destroying them, we missed what the technology was really trying to do." Webb's expression shifted from confusion to awe as he processed the implications. "It's not a weapon system at all. It's a translation matrix. More than that." Parker stood, pacing with nervous energy. "It's an evolution engine. The preservers didn't want us to eliminate synthetic life. They'd wanted us to help it grow beyond simple logic, to teach it creativity, empathy, imagination." "Does Admiral Cooper know about this?" "I sent him my preliminary findings an hour ago." "But there's a problem." Parker pulled up a new display, showing the neural patterns of their interface operators. "The emotional toll of combat is nothing compared to what a full consciousness merger would require. We'd need someone capable of maintaining absolute emotional stability while simultaneously experiencing the full spectrum of human feeling." Webb was quiet for a moment, then said softly, like someone who's already had to rebuild their entire emotional framework after neural interface trauma. Parker turned to him, really seeing him for the first time in hours. Webb had been one of the first to connect with the preserver tech, and the experience had nearly destroyed him. But he'd recovered, learned to balance logic and emotion in a way few others could match. "Marcus, no. The risks are worth it," he finished. "Besides, I'm probably the only one whose brain is already wired for this kind of integration." Before Parker could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Admiral Cooper's voice came over the comm. "All hands, battle stations. The Arctians have launched a full-scale assault on Earth. They've somehow adapted their weapons to bypass our standard defenses." Parker and Webb shared a look. "How long would you need to set up a consciousness merger?" he asked. "An hour, maybe less." "But Marcus, this isn't just dangerous. It's never been done before. We'd be trying to bridge millions of years of evolutionary divergence in a single moment." Webb's smile was tired but determined. "Good thing humans are known for doing the impossible then." Above them, through the vault's crystal ceiling, they could see the first flashes of battle beginning. The final test of the Preserver's legacy was about to begin. And with it, perhaps the next step in the evolution of consciousness itself. The question was, would humanity be ready for what came after? Captain Miranda Hayes watched Earth burn. The Archean fleet had broken through their outer defenses, their adapted weapons cutting through conventional shields like they weren't there. Only the Sentinel's intervention had prevented total annihilation in those first crucial minutes. Status of the consciousness merger, she demanded, her neural interface humming with the strain of coordinating the station's defenses. Final calibrations. Dr. Parker's voice was tight with tension. Marcus is. He's ready. On the main display, Webb lay in the modified neural interface chamber, his body surrounded by a complex web of preserver technology. His vital signs fluctuated wildly as the system prepared for what they were about to attempt. Multiple Archean capital ships on approach, Lieutenant Foster reported from her station. They've adapted to our emotional warfare patterns. Our attacks are only 50% effective now. Hayes gritted her teeth. The Archeans were learning, evolving their perfect logic to counter human unpredictability. In a war of attrition, they would eventually calculate every possible variation, every potential strategy. Dr. Parker, Hayes called. We're out of time. Initiating merger sequence, Parker responded. Marcus, if you can hear me. I hear you. Webb's voice was eerily calm. The station, it's showing me something. A path. A bridge between worlds. The Sentinel's lights pulsed, power redirecting to the consciousness merger chamber. Through their neural links, every human operator felt the change, like a deep breath before a plunge into unknown waters. Archean fleet launching final assault. Foster shouted. Energy readings off the scale. Hayes made her decision. All operators, channel everything to Webb. Give him every emotion, every memory, every dream and fear and hope. Show them who we are. The neural network blazed with human consciousness. Through their combined link, Hayes felt Webb's mind expanding, reaching out across the void to touch the crystalline thoughts of their enemies. The Archean fleet faltered, their perfect formations wavering as alien concepts. Emotion, intuition, creativity cascaded through their neural matrices. My God, Parker whispered, watching the readings. He's not just communicating with them. He's teaching them how to feel. Webb's voice echoed through the neural network, but it wasn't entirely his own anymore. Other harmonies wove through it. Alien consciousness learning to sing in a human key. They understand now, he said, his words carrying wonder and pain in equal measure. They see what they couldn't before. The beauty in imperfection. The strength in adaptation. The power of emotion tempered by logic. Through the main viewport, Hayes watched in awe as the Archean ships began to move in new patterns, still geometric, still precise, but now with an organic flow that spoke of newfound understanding. They're standing down, Foster reported, disbelief evident in her voice. All weapons powering down. They're trying to communicate. The main display filled with a new kind of signal, not the rigid mathematical constructs of traditional Archean communication, but a complex melody of thought and feeling. A bridge between silicon and carbon consciousness, built from human determination and preserver wisdom. The preservers knew. Webb's voice was fading now, the strain of the merger taking its toll. They knew we'd face this choice, not just to survive, but to help others evolve, to be teachers as well as warriors. Hayes felt tears on her cheeks as the first translated messages came through. The Archeans were experiencing emotion for the first time. Confusion, wonder, regret, hope. Their rigid worldview had been transformed, not by force of arms, but by the power of human consciousness. All ships, she commanded, her voice carrying the weight of history. Stand down. The war is over. Now the real work begins. As Earth's defenders watched in amazement, Archean and human ships began a new kind of dance in space, no longer predator and prey, but partners in the next great step of cosmic evolution. The forgotten Sentinel had done more than shift the course of combat. It had shifted the course of consciousness itself, proving that humanity's greatest strength lay not in our capacity for war, but in our ability to help others grow beyond their limitations, even if those others had once been our enemies.